Hello, hello. It is the beginning of August and another month is coming on, which means it's time for another monthly reading wrap up. In July, I read 6 books, so join me as I tell you what each one is about, what I liked about them, and also what I disliked about them. And if you're new to the channel and you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Katerina. It's lovely to see you here. I make reading wrap ups every month, and if that's something you're into, why do you consider subscribing? No pressure though, only if you want to. And that being said, let's get into the video. The very first book I read in the month of July was Swimming in the Dark by tomasz jedrowski. This is a gorgeous yet heartbreaking novel that's a powerful blend of romance and historical fiction. The story is set in 1918's Poland when the country was under communist rule, and we follow two young men who meet at an agricultural camp who form an intense and immediate connection. Their relationship blossoms into a society where their love is not only taboo but also dangerous, forcing them to contend with the oppressive political regime and societal expectations. And as the political tension in Poland escalates, so does the tension between our two lovers. And it creates a narrative that's not only raw and intimate but historically resonant. It explores themes of oppressive regimes, forbidden love, and the quest for identity. And starting this month off extremely strong, I gave this book 5 stars. You can always tell how much I love a book with how much sticky tabs I put in the pages. If there's loads of sticky tabs, it means I absolutely adored it. And it's safe to say I'm absolutely obsessed with this book. I adore this novel because I feel like it really addresses the complexities of love in a time of political turmoil. You follow the character's every thought as he's wrestling to live in a society that forbids his love, but also following along in his excitement and vulnerability of having his first true romance. And it's almost ironic how he finds peace and sanctuary in his lover's presence, but it's juxtaposed with this lack of freedom that he experiences in everyday life. I just felt like all the characters were so richly developed and I was just really invested with everyone. You see every single character's inner conflicts and desires. They're all rendered with such nuance and empathy, which makes the fates of so many characters so heartbreaking at the end because you feel like you really know them by that point. Honestly, I just loved this book so much, and I genuinely felt like it was the most perfect sad summer read, which I made a whole video about, which I'll link down below if you want to watch. But this book just had everything. It had character depth, it had profound development, and it had the perfect balance of tenderness and tension within the romance. All of which aspects I absolutely love in my books, and it's the reasons why I think that you should read it too. Carrying on with the sad girl summer theme, the second book I read in July was Bonjour, tristesse by francoise sagan. In this French novel, we follow a 17-year-old girl who adores her carefree lifestyle, of which she shares with her charismatic widowed father. However, her perfect summer in France is disrupted by the arrival of a woman who starts a relationship with her father. Her very presence threatens this hedonistic lifestyle our main character holds dear, and she's a little saboteur because she devises a plan to end their union. However, little does she foresee that the consequences of doing so were a lot more tragic than she envisaged. The novel is a tapestry of themes including jealousy, manipulation, and the complexities of the adult world, and I gave this book 3 stars. Okay, there are some aspects about this book that I did quite like. For example, I feel as though that the author really captured this emotional turbulence in adolescence so well, where you don't really care about some things which turn out to be the most important things later on in life, and then there are smaller things that only just seem to concern you that turn out to be like the biggest things there and then. And every feeling feels heightened and every decision feels like life or death. Honestly, teenagers, so dramatic. Plus, the author wrote this when she was 18, which I generally find so wild because the writing style just exudes wisdom and experience. And maybe because she was this age when she wrote it, she was able to capture these adolescence feelings so well. It also quite adequately explored the feeling of growing up into reality and the pain of that, as the title itself is French for Hello Sadness, foreshadows this bittersweet journey that the reader is about to embark on with the main character. It embodies the sadness of saying farewell to childhood and adolescence and facing the harsh realities that come with adult life. However, that being said, there were some things that I disliked about the book. I found the story just a bit too short. I wanted more development and backstory. I just felt like I didn't know enough about the main character and what she was like back home to understand and warrant her, honestly, spoiled behavior when she was on these holidays. And I also just found the ending of the book just to be so out the blue, and it just happened too quickly. And in general, I didn't really understand anyone's motivations or reasoning in this book completely, just because the pacing was so quick and I feel like you didn't really get to know the characters that well. But I don't know, maybe this quick pace was intentional to mirror the fleeting nature of youth. But to be honest, I found it a little bit frustrating because I found it really hard to actually get properly engaged in the book. So overall, it was okay, but I didn't absolutely love it. The third book I read last month was also by Francoise Sagan, and that's because the book I bought actually had 2 of her stories in, and the second one being A Certain Smile. This novel follows a 20-year-old law student who is in a casual relationship with another student. However, her life takes a turn when she embarks on a love affair with this guy's uncle, and he's an older married man. And it turns out to be a bit of a rollercoaster because it challenges her understanding of love, life, and the consequences of fleeting passions. And she's therefore forced to confront the depth of her feelings and the reality of her choices. This narrative is a rich exploration into the youthful desire, first-time heartbreak, and the bittersweet nature of a transient love affair. And I gave this book 3.5 stars. Again, like the last one, I found this novel impressive knowing that the author was so young when she wrote it, and perhaps because the author was so close to the protagonist's age here, it really accurately captures this nature of happiness and this almost ignorant yearning you get when you're young, as well as this authenticity of youthful discretion that kind of then turns into a sobering journey of self-awareness as you age. I genuinely think that this book will resonate with anyone who's experienced an intoxicating rush of a forbidden love with a very sobering aftermath. Also, I know this sounds kind of dumb, but this book also just felt very Lana Del Rey coded for me. It's French, it's classy, expensive, and it's about a young girl who's in love with an older man. And as someone who religiously grew up on Lana's music in my teens, I really just enjoyed this overall vibe that the book had. However, the things I disliked were again similar to the last book. I just felt like this novel was very surface level, and I really wanted a deeper dive into the characters' backgrounds and motivations. And whilst her emotional journey was compelling, I just felt like she was too detached and blasé most of the time. Like, if this was me going through that situation at 20, I would have been climbing up the walls, foaming at the mouth, going crazy. Whereas this main character was just like, oh, I'm sad about this. I needed more raw emotion and depth of feelings. I'm a Pisces, okay? I need intensity in my novels. But despite this, given its length, it was still an enjoyable read, and yeah, I would probably say that I would recommend others to read it too. The UK is having a heat wave at the moment, and currently my room is warmer than it is outside because it just retains so much heat, so I am struggling, but we will carry on. Okay, moving away from Francoise Sagan, the next book I read in the month of July was actually by an Italian author, and that's The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante, which is the same author that wrote the Neapolitan series, including My Brilliant Friend. In this book, the story unfolds within the confines of an apartment in Italy, where the protagonist faces the sudden departure of her husband. And during the suffocating summer heat, which to be honest feels like right now, she's left to grapple with the intense and disorientating emotions of being abandoned. And the book delves deep into her psychological descent as she tries to maintain normalcy for her kids whilst wrestling with her own identity crisis. The narrative is a raw and visceral depiction of a woman's struggle. It's an examination on the complexities of love, motherhood, and the spectre of madness. I absolutely adored this book, and you can probably tell by these sticky notes that I also gave this book 5 stars. Now, this book had the sort of unhinged madness and intense commentary that I was yearning for with the other book. The psychological depth in this book is absolutely unparalleled, as we see this woman's identity collapse from the inside out. It looks through this woman's eyes of betrayal, resilience, and the process of self-reclamation, as it delves into the raw emotion and relentless spiral of a person's life just unraveling before them. The writing is just so unapologetically blunt, which I feel like honestly captures the messiness of life and the complexity of human emotions. And I honestly think that this book is just profoundly relatable to anyone that's experienced loss. And it's extremely relatable if you've experienced ghosting or someone leaving you, so proceed with caution. This is actually one of my favourite books of the year so far, as it just has that beautiful, unrestrained female rage that I just want to see more of. And if you guys know me, you know I absolutely love an unhinged woman. Elena Ferrante, I love your work. I would literally read your shopping list. Please give us more. Okay, for the 5th book I read last month, this was actually a book my manager lent me to borrow, so I'd never heard of it, but I was super excited to read it when I saw that it was actually on the New York Times 100 Best Books list, which I made a video about if you want to know what all the books are character about in that list, which I'll also link down below. And the book that I read was Bel Canto by Patchett. This story is set during a lavish birthday party being held at a vice president's mansion at an unnamed South American country. However, this party is suddenly besieged by a group of terrorists hoping to kidnap the president. However, as he's not there, the book then centers on the hostages and their captors. As their confinement stretches over many months, the lines between prisoner and captor begins to blur. This book is a profound exploration of love and compassion amidst a crisis, and the shared humanity that emerges in the face of adversity. And I gave this book 3.5 stars. I have mixed feelings about this book, but I'm going to start off as always with telling you what I liked about it. When the hostage situation played out, I was gripped. And maybe that's because I'm a sucker for survival thrillers, but I could then not put this book down. And even when I did, I was just constantly thinking, oh my god, what is going to happen next? The premise itself is such a unique plot, and whilst it is loosely based on true events of the Lima crisis, when in 1996 the president of Peru was kidnapped for many months. But even with the plot aside, I really enjoyed this book for the emotional aspect of the characters. Firstly, it had so many different characters to the extent where these characters didn't even speak the same language, but they were all woven together so naturally and so authentically. And second, all of whom had such rich character developments, which allowed me as a reader to form really quite deep emotional connections with them. And the things that they go through are really moving and thought-provoking, and even now that I've finished the book, I still think about them. However, I didn't give this 5 stars for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the beginning of the book was so dry, like I really struggled getting into it. And it's because it kind of just really blandly lists background information about the characters, and there's just not really any personality or quirks for you to latch onto. Like, I was generally reading it like, why should I care about what the job this person has on, who he's married to, and where he's from? Like, it generally kind of felt like I was reading a CV or someone's Wikipedia page. So I found it really difficult getting through this first section before all the juicy drama happened. And the second reason I didn't really like it is because of the very, very final chapter, the epilogue of the book. I won't mention what the plot is because I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's essentially an ending to the hostage situation, which that part I really liked. And if the book ended there, I probably would have given it 4.5 stars. But then there's an epilogue that happens which is set like years after, and it just made no sense. If anything, it undermined the characters' actions and the plot of the whole book in general. And there was also times where the book did drag, but then again, these are hostages living in the same house for months, so there's going to be times where the plot lulls. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. I did find that the middle bit was quite juicy, but I just think that the start and the end were a bit of a letdown. It's a little bit like that drawing where like the first part of it and the ends are drawn like really badly, and like the middle piece is like a masterpiece. That's how I felt about this book. And finally, the 6th book I read in July was Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I read this book because it was my book club's choice of the month. And this is a contemporary novel that follows a writer who has become skeptical about love. And after her father's death, to deal with the pain of it and also to get over her writer's block, she decides to spend some time at her dad's secret beach house where he led a secret second life, where she discovers that her next door neighbor was her college rival. What a coincidence. He's also a writer, and they essentially strike a deal where they swap genres of what they write about, almost seeing in who can land a book deal first. The novel explores the creative process of writing and romantic love when it's least expected. And I'm gonna finish this video by being a hater because I gave this book 1 star. This is the sort of book I would never pick up in real life, and for good reason, because I thought it absolutely sucked. Firstly, the plot was just so predictable and cringy. I found myself just rolling my eyes about 90% of the time. Look, I absolutely love an enemies to lovers trope, but I just felt like it was so boring here and there was no stakes involved, so I was just like, why should I care? Secondly, the characters were just so annoying. Like, I just could not stand the main character at all. She's written as one of these characters who is meant to be really quirky and kooky, but really is just actually irritating and has an awful fashion sense. And the only thing I would say that makes her unique is her name, which is January. No hate to anyone named January, but what is that about? And thirdly, the writing was just so awful and painful to get through. And look, no hate to American authors, but I find that the majority of American romance novels are just really, really quite bad. And maybe it's because for me personally, I like British humour, which is quite sarcastic and dry. So then their definition of flirty banter for me just comes across like it's written by a 12-year-old fanfic writer. It's just a bit cringy and not original. And I'm not saying this is for all American authors, I just find it very particular for this genre of rom-com book that BookTok seems to absolutely be obsessed with, that all seems to have these illustrated covers and are just very simplistic writing. I'm just not a fan. And I won't lie when I say I absolutely hated this book, and I made sure that everyone in my book club knew that too. That being said, those are all the books I read in the month of July. Overall, I would say that this is a varied month of reading. Both 5 stars and 1 stars have both been dished out. Have you read any of these books? If so, what did you think of them? And if you didn't read any of these books, tell me which books you did read in July. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like down below. It really helps me out. And if you're new here, please subscribe. I make new videos every Tuesday. And I make reading wrap-ups every month. That way you'll be here when the next month ends. Feel free to also follow me on my Instagram. I post more personal stuff on there, but I also post about books as soon as I finish reading them, so you can see what I've rated them out of 10 and also what they're about. And feel free to also be friends with me on my Goodreads. I recently made a new account, so it's a work in progress, but I'd love to see your love on there too. Okay, I'm currently very sweaty because my room is getting warmer and warmer without my fan, so I need to go lie in front of that for a while. Thank you so much for being here and supporting my channel. I love you all so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!